Okay, go
Hello.
ahead.
Hi, good evening. This is Lee Bell, your host, and Tommy Lee of FYI on Life. Just wanted to give this disclaimer. We want to let you know that this information that you're about to receive tonight is strictly for educational purposes. We do not treat, cure, or diagnose any condition. If you have a medical condition, we ask that you would see your physician of choice. And tonight we have Fred Neal with us talking about the super oxygenated water. Take out a pen, paper, write down your questions, and we'll be answering them later on the call. And with that, I'll turn the call back over to Tommy Lee.
Okay, tonight we have Fred Neal on the call talking about the oxygenated water. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask the questions. Right now, I'm putting it in lecture mode, and I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Fred so he can go ahead and tell us some of the new exciting things that the water has been doing. And I'm turning it over to you, Fred.
Okay, I'm glad to be with you, Tommy, and Lee, and the rest of the participants that showed up here tonight. I thank you. And there's every once in a while we get some interesting questions, and I think it's would be good just to touch base on some of those to give you an idea about this water. We do get testimonies just real regularly. I'd love to have. I'll tell you what. Whenever I turn this over to you, Tommy, I'll pick up my testimony sheet. We've come out with a new one, and I can pick up some off of that. Why don't I do that now? Let me excuse me
go ahead.
Just for a second.
Okay. Yeah, while Fred's doing that, if you came on the call, just go ahead and press star 6 to mute out any kind of background noise. And if you have a testimony, we'd like to hear all your testimonies. And I'll go over some of the information that I've heard about the water. We'll just be waiting on Fred to get back to the call.
Okay, I'm back with you.
Okay.
I didn't have my head screwed on real good, but let me just start with a couple here. I have one here that came in recently. It says, this is from Roger in California. It said, I've been using your purple water for 2 weeks now. No longer have blood in my stool. Nothing was able to stop that except the purple water. Feel great and have better sleep. I've been inhaling the purple water into my lungs with great results. Now, see, we have one here that I'm not sure I've shared this or not, but I'll do it again. I need to tell you that I've been on Coumadin for my blood at least 4 years, and the doctor said I have to be on it for the rest of my life. After I started drinking your water, I went off the Coumadin. I went to have my blood checked the other day, and they said it was normal. Naturally, the doctor wasn't happy when I told him I was no longer taking my medicine. I just want to thank you again for sharing your Manna with me. Here's one. Clear pond and energy sensitiveness with liquid Manna. We have a pond in our backyard, which was a bit murky. I put an unopened bottle of Royal inside, that's our purple, inside the pond and left it there for 3 days. Took it out, and the pond is so much clearer that we can see the bottom. I'm using the unopened Royal soaked in a 20-liter plastic container to water our garden. We'll let you know how the garden responds. So these are that's just about 3 of them there that I thought was pretty interesting here. And we have calls all the time from people concerning the water, and I think sometimes I think maybe we're making this water too complicated, and I got to thinking about that today, and I said, well, let's see if I can help people understand what we really have here. Anybody that's testing for our water, let's say you took our water into a test lab, they would test for total dissolved solids, they would test for pH, and other, and oxygen level also. But what they would find with our water, it would look just about like anybody else's water. Now that sounds strange until you understand what we have here. They use standard measuring equipment to do a lot of things like that, which is what all of your college research labs and all use. They use whatever is on the market with the latest teaching and learning aids and everything that they have at their disposal. But whenever they look at our water, they don't see a great deal, kind of generally across the board, but they see some interesting characteristics to it that they can't explain. Now, what the difference in the two is that we work with energy levels. Now, that's kind of new to a lot of us, but everything responds to an energy level. Your body responds to an energy level. So if you're thirsty and your body has a certain energy level, and then you get a good drinking water that has a much higher energy level, then whenever you drink that, then your body is refreshed. It recognizes that energy level. And so everything that utilizes water, whether it be human beings, animals, plant life, or something like that, all respond to energy levels. Well, our oxygen, we've learned how to introduce it into the water at a very high energy level. But what is interesting about this, that people that are on our water, if they go into the hospital for some reason or another and get their oxygen level checked, the meters and everything in the hospital will actually read blood oxygen level, and they can tell it is very, very high. And they're always coming out and saying, well, how did that happen? Well, that is because of the energy level. Your body responds to energy level. Their instrumentation does not respond to energy levels, and so they don't understand what it is that we have here. They just know we got something very, very unusual, and it's difficult to deal with. But let's also talk about energy levels, and I'll stretch a point here to make a point. If you were putting our water on your tomato plant out there, our water would have a high energy level, and that tomato plant would really respond to that high energy level. Well, let me really stretch the point here now to show you what I'm talking about. I could take some gasoline. It has a high energy level, and I could put it on that tomato plant, and chances are it'd kill it, because the energy level is not compatible with the tomato plant. Well, just in my engineering mind says that whenever we want to convey oxygen to the body, we use water as the conveying agent, because the body will receive water and consequently the high energy level. Whenever you take a prescription drug, for instance, and this is just my own personal opinion on this, so don't shoot me too bad, but when you take a prescription drug, they use a poison to convey their product to you, and your body does not. It responds to a negative energy level as far as the body itself is concerned, just like that tomato plant would respond to a negative energy that is not compatible with tomatoes. I don't know if I've made that any clearer or not. I might have just muddied the water, but what is going on is kind of I identify it like this. The Bible says we came out of a garden. We didn't come out of a chem lab. Well, you don't use chem lab techniques to solve garden problems because you're working in two different realms. The two just are just not compatible. So people have asked me about that, and talking about these energy levels, then let me step on out to a question or two that's come up, and let me see if I can kind of paraphrase the question. It says, since the purple or the royal is much more concentrated, why would you not be able to just use that instead of the regular? Would it not be better overall, or is there a reason why you might not want to use this all the time? The answer to that question is not everybody can handle the purple. Their body is not seasoned to that high level of oxygen, and their system quite often will not handle the purple, but it will handle the red-green if they mix it in their drinking water. And over a period of time, what happens is that the oxygen level, which also leads the energy level in the body, keeps going up and up and up until eventually, if you stay on it long enough, your body will become seasoned, if you will. Now, at that time, once it reaches that high level of oxygen, then it's going to tend to ward off anything that tries to attack it, like the flu or pneumonia or something like that. Those things might try to attack the body, but the body's energy level now, because of the high oxygen, overpowers that energy level of that disease or whatever it is that's trying to attach itself to you. Tommy, does that make sense?
Yes, that does. It does make sense.
Okay. Now then, so our idea is in doing what we're doing is to utilize the strong man of the house principle, if you will. The Bible says, how can you spoil a man's house lest you first bind the strong man? Well, what happens is if the man that's living in this house, and I'm referring to his house as the body, if that house is very, very strong, then the enemy that would try to come against it would not be able to overpower him. However, on the other hand, if that person body was weak because of poisons, because of any number of things, well then any high-powered, high-energy sickness or anything like that would come down the pike would jump onto the body and does just real regularly and go ahead and take up residence in the body, and you got some major problems there. So what we're trying to do is use the strong man of the house principle. Flood, and this is why we suggest to people when they call us, if they've got a major health problem, well then they might consider drinking one of the purple bottles the first day they get it, because and several of you have heard me mention that, but what that does, it puts a tremendous amount of oxygen in the system real quick. And then you follow up by drinking the red green or the regular, and then that helps go ahead and condition the body, and it helps overall to get that energy level that's created by the added the high-powered oxygen. It gets that energy level on up there to where there's not much that can overpower it. That's what I'm really coming to. So that's kind of our philosophy in working with this and designing it, and it sure does work real nice, and we hear it in lots of testimonies. He says the next question, excuse me, he said, I believe you mentioned on one of your conference calls that it would not be helpful to double up on making the gallon of water. I understood you to say that it did not make the concentration of the water stronger if you used 2 caps instead of 1. What we're dealing here with is not conventional thinking, because we're not dealing with a conventional product. Now, let's say the red green, it has its energy level. That's the one that we suggest you get on and you drink, and it's got a tremendously high amount of oxygen in it, and it's just a good all-around program. If you don't have, say, a major problem, you want to get just on a maintenance program, the red green is just beautiful for that. But you put a tablespoon of red green in a gallon of water, that will go ahead and energize and raise that oxygen in that gallon of water to the level of the red green. Now then, here is where it differs from conventional thinking. Since the red green is in the concentrate form, you'd think, well, if I put 2 tablespoons rather than 1 in there, then I'm going to get a higher concentration, because that's normally the way things go out here in the world. Well, that's not the case at all, and I tell people, well, it's not going to hurt you, it's not going to help you. All it's going to do is cause you to run out of water just a little bit quicker. And the reason it's not going to help is you've already introduced 1 tablespoon at this high level. The second tablespoon cannot be any higher than that first tablespoonful. So it's just that first one will go ahead and permeate that gallon in just a matter of a few seconds. So before you ever got the second one in there, it's already ready to drink at that higher level. But by putting the second one in there, you're not going to add to it, because it's already got all of the energy level that red green is capable of doing. Now, does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. It's almost like is that sort of like a little is better, a lot is just overdoing it, just overkill?
Yeah. Yeah, see, that's I want people to start thinking that's conventional thinking. That's what we've all thought that way for years, and it does apply that way to a lot of things. But we're dealing with a product here that's not been on the market, and people are not used to thinking this way, and their instrumentation can't measure what we're doing. And that's why just using your standard instrumentation to measure our water, it looks just about like somebody else's water. But the professors that are studying my water right now, and I'm not going to. That study is not near ready to let out, but I'm just telling you they're studying this and at a very high-powered college, and they just they say it's amazing. This water looks like other water, except certain feature just blows us away. We can't understand how you did what you did. Well, they've got the finest test equipment available, but it can only test for certain features, and those features are things that's been identified in the classroom over the years, and with the books are already written and everything. So if you want to know how to do this, you go check out the book and you read it, and then you follow the instruction. That's what you get. Well, the problem is the book on what we're doing hasn't been written yet, but they did call me and said, we don't understand what you have done to this, but please don't lose this technology. We need this technology for the future. So that made me feel real good.
Wow.
And let's see if I've got another one. He says, kindly explain how this is possible. Well, adding more of anything should make the concentration more until a saturation point is reached. It certainly should not happen in just 2 caps, since that would still be far less concentrated than even 1 cap of the purple. Well, I went over that, and I'll not continue on, but anyway, you're getting the idea there. Said, let's see, I have, he said, I've put one regular and 1 purple cap in my gallon of water, and I can tell you that for me it does make a big difference how it seems to work for me and makes me feel better. Well, I agree with him, and the reason for that is, as you're getting it's okay to mix the red, green, and the purple together if you want to, because it's gonna ultimately gravitate to the strength of the purple anyway. But whenever he's putting those 2 together and his body has been used to the red, green, well then some people are more sensitive than others, and he just happens to be one, which I think is great. But he can only carry it just as high as that purple is if he keeps, say, getting on the purple. So let's see. He said, I have a 3,000-gallon water tank, and hearing the story about the oxygen in the large pond, I was wondering if I could just hang a purple bottle in my storage tank, and it would do the same thing for all my household water as the pond. And I said, you certainly can. And I suggested maybe hanging a couple of the purple in there, and just let them. Well, you can toss them in there if you want to. Just let them float like a cork, and they will go ahead and charge that 3,000-gallon water tank. It's just that he doesn't have a way of testing the charge and know when it's reached that level. And another thing, depends on what your water turnover is and how quickly it's turned over, will depend on how soon it could reach a charge. But we have done this in farm ponds, like I had said before, and it took us 7 days to reclaim a pond that would not support fish life or anything else, just by staking the bottles out around this 2-acre lake down here near Marble Falls, Texas. And in just about a week, we had that pond then would support fish life, and also important if you have a farm or something like that, and you've got very low oxygen in your ponds. Well, think about your animals that come to that pond to drink. They may be getting a volume of water, but they're not getting the oxygen that they need. And what happens, in my way of thinking, is that the body will rob certain parts of it to supply other parts. Rob Peter to pay Paul type thing, and it has a devastating effect on the animals. And animals with drinking out of a pond with a very, very, very low oxygen level in it would soon, in my way of thinking, they may get plenty of water, but they would not get hydrated, and they would soon die from lack of oxygen in the water. So that's something that people don't think about whenever they're out here in the where the rubber meets the road. And now we're working with the tilapia fish growing people to help them get their water up to a very high quality. because the main problem that they have there is diseases and things like that that's in the water because of the overabundance of fish. They really highly populate these fish farms, and if you're not careful, well, then you can have diseases in there that brings a high mortality rate to the fish. And talking to them, most of the fish, tilapias, are brought in from China nowadays, and they tell me that all of them are very low grade because they're all poison. So we know how to clean up those ponds, and we'll do so. But if you're experiencing water, our water for the first time and all, just know that you've got something here that's very, very unconventional, but it's very user friendly, and you'll love it. It'll do you a good job. Just let it do its thing and give it an opportunity to work. Okay.
Okay. Now you were talking about breathing the water a while ago. Now, how were they breathing it? Were they using a nebulizer?
Yeah, we've had some that use the nebulizer. We've had some that use a spray bottle, just a misting bottle, and spray it right into the face, and they really enjoy that. Another thing that you might want to consider is when our kids were small, we had vaporizers. They still have those. I don't know. They may call them something else now, but what we would do, we would put certain things in there, and then turn these things on, and it would put out a little mist in the room for the children to breathe and things like this. And that is an excellent thing if you wanted to do that. If you had any kind of breathing problems and all, you could just let a vaporizer vaporize this water into the room in your house, and just go about your daily task. And you got to understand something else. That since you brought this up, let me mention this. There's a tremendous amount of water in the air. To give you a little bit of an idea about how much water is in the air, when I was in engineering school, I recall that we were taught that for every gallon of gasoline that goes through your car, there's 12 gallons of water, simply because you've heard of the air-fuel mixture ratio on automobiles. You got to have the right mixture of air. You got to have the right mixture of fuel for that engine to run right. And one of the things that they compensate for is the moisture that's in the air. So just know that there's a tremendous amount of moisture in your house, and if you had a little vaporizer sitting at a convenient place and even just circulated it throughout the house, believe me, it would do you a lot of good. And that moisture hitting your skin, I venture to say you're going to be real pleased with your complexion over a period of time.
Those units are called humidifiers. Well, they do have vaporizer and humidifiers.
Yeah. Well, either one, the humidifier puts moisture in the air. Mm-hmm. Well, so does a vaporizer. They're just called two different things, I guess, aren't they?
Right.
But that's an excellent idea, and I think if Tommy, if you don't mind, I'll ramble here just for a moment. I'll bring up something else while we're on this subject. I have had I don't know if I mentioned this when I was on your program last or not, but we had a situation back east where this little 11-year-old was under life support because of the MRSA virus or something like that. I'm not a medical guy, so I may have pronounced it wrong. But anyway, you've probably heard of it if you've watched the news or read the news. But anyway, he was on life support, and they didn't think he was going to make it. They contacted me. They had some of my water, and they contacted me and said, well, what kind of protocol would you use to get this oxygen in him. We can't make him drink it because he's totally out of it, and I don't know how they had him all strapped up or whatnot. But anyway, I said use a misting bottle and just mist his body if you can. And they called back the next day and said he was taken off of life support because he responded so beautifully. But they said we, in addition to spraying the misting the water on him, and by the way, whenever you mist that on there, it goes directly into the skin, into your bloodstream, and it gives you a homeopathic effect throughout your body. Excuse me. They did went one step further and said, well, if the misting bottle works real good, let's soak some gauze pads in the royal water, the purple, and place that on him. And they said he responded almost immediately on that stuff. So your body is looking for help there, and believe me, in his particular case, he got help in a hurry. Okay.
Okay, and you said now this purple water and red and green water, it has energy in it at a level that regular instruments can't measure.
That's true. It can be measured, but it's got to be some very sophisticated equipment to do that because, like I say, we're measuring the oxygen level from an energy standpoint, and they standard equipment wants to break it down and read the different from the table of the elements and all. They break water down and analyze it that way. Where we love to work with the energy levels because, like I said before, your body responds to it. That's what it does respond to. So it gives us a real good clue as to how things are going because we can measure the energy level in your body and the oxygen level in your body just real well with our equipment. But they've never been taught that, and so they don't know to look out for it. I've told the professors that that's what makes us different is that we're dealing with energy levels where you're dealing with another side of this thing, you see.
Mm-hmm. But I know, like the Miracle 2, it can hold an electrical charge because it's got minerals in it.
Yes.
Is it the minerals in the water that holds this energy in it, or?
No, because we can do this with distilled water.
Okay.
What we do is we stabilize the water molecule, and once you stabilize it, then it'll hold what you give it to hold. And that's another reason why our water, as long as it's wet, it will have that high oxygen level in it. And they've never been able to achieve that before. And they've never got water to this high oxygen level before either. So we're dealing with a product here that's just it's not just water. Let's just put it that way.
I wonder if we got any other. I mean, if anybody got any questions or they would like to ask any, questions.
I have a question, Tommy. Fred, have they studied the water frozen to check out how it looks crystallized?
That's one of the things that they're in the process of doing, yes. And they've asked me about it and what should they expect whenever they do this, and I said, well, you're going to find it very, very interesting water. So we don't have their results on that thing, but they're going to be looking to check bond angles and stuff like this, which you've heard a lot about.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll know all of that stuff sooner or later. Now then, the question is, how do we translate it over from what they're doing in the lab to what we're doing in reality? They suggested that I take and make that transition that parallel myself using my own equipment. I'm not sure I'm that smart, you know. I appreciate their confidence, but I don't know how well founded it is. Because I am just a country boy sitting out here in the woods.
Oh, yeah. I mean, how has that water been holding you up during all this cold weather?
Man, I've been doing great. I'll tell you what took me by surprise, and this ought to be a word to the wise. My oxygen level is probably the highest of anybody in the world because of what I've done here over the last 5 years or so. But just recently, we had a little bit rainy weather, and I went outside, and immediately my eyes started just burning and other things, and I realized that this ethylene dibromide had settled out. Well, it did, and I'll tell you, as a result of that, it made me sick there for a little while. I never did feel bad, but I hadn't felt like that. But within an hour, everything was turned around and going. But I mean, it really tried to attack me. I don't know what would have happened if hadn't had a high level of oxygen and energy at that time. But that stuff was just really devastating. That's been a couple of weeks ago, I guess, whenever all of that was going on, and you know the all of the bird kill and the animal kill around the world and all. I think a lot of that came as a result of a lot of that spraying, and we just got a real good dose of it in this part of the country too.
What's the shelf life of the red and green and purple?
We don't believe there is a shelf life at all. We have no indication that it's losing any of its energy over the years. We think it's good to go.
Question.
Okay.
Does heating or boiling the water change its energy level?
That is a real good question, and the answer to that, the short answer is no. It doesn't matter if you boil it, doesn't matter if you freeze it. It's still got its energy level. Of course, you're gonna lose some of your water when you boil it because it'll go off in vapor. Another thing. Recently, somebody asked me about it, and I thought I had recalled running this test way back when, but I said, just to refresh my own memory, I'll do it. But they asked me, well, what about what does the microwave do to your water? And I said it doesn't affect it at all, but I said I will go in and I want to refresh my memory on that myself anyway. So I got a test tube of my tap water, and I run it 30 seconds in a microwave, blew away about 2/3 of it, but I did have enough left in the test tube to go ahead and test it. The oxygen level in my tap water was running 1600. When it run through the microwave, the oxygen level dropped down to 1200, so I lost 25% of my oxygen in that 30-second blurb through the microwave. I'd done the same thing with the purple water, my Royal, and here too, just because of the nature of a microwave, they will boil that water and just crash it out of there, if it can. Well, same thing happened to the purple, and but I did have enough left of it to go ahead and test it, and that oxygen level was still right where it was. So that's I don't recommend the microwave to anybody. I just happened to, a lot of people have them, and had one handy, so I said, well, I'll just check it out and answer the question and refresh my memory on it too, because it had been some years since I had run that test. Good question, though.
Okay, now does the size of the container matter when you're putting it in, like in a storage tank? You know, the guy you was talking about a while ago that has a 3,000-gallon storage tank. That's probably his drinking water, and he may have to. Does the size of the bottle matter? 16 ounce or 24 ounce?
Not necessarily the size of the bottle. What you're looking at is time and residence. If you leave the 16 or the 24 ounce in there for the proper amount of time, it'll go ahead and charge that 3,000 gallons. And I did understand from his question that was his drinking water. And you can do that. As a matter of fact, I have my home in Arkansas set up throughout with purple version. Goes through all my faucets and everything else, and out to the animals, to the kitchen sink, everything else. So it's a matter of time and residence. You need time for that to bring that volume of water up to a certain level, and if you're using quite a bit, well then it's a little bit. It takes longer to get it up there. But if it's just sitting there, well then it'll go ahead and keep its charge going and attack pathogens or whatever that might be in the water, and it'll go ahead and do you a good job over a period of time. It's just that you don't have the method of testing it.
Fred.
Yes, sir.
So using that 3,000-gallon tank example, if we saturate it with the purple, and once it gets saturated, does that also mean that we would not need to chlorinate it?
Yes. As a matter of fact, we had our first bout with chlorination process. I maybe mentioned before on another call. A man in Dallas had reworked a swimming pool, and they refurbished the pool, and then they filled it up with that good Dallas City water, which is highly chlorinated. And he said, "Well, can you design a water that'll take that chlorination out?" And I said, "Well, that was early on." I said, "Let's give it a shot. Let's see if we can." Well, I sent him some bottles down and told him how to mix it, and we just had him to just toss half of it out into the swimming pool itself, and then we watched it. Took weekly tests on it, and it took a little bit over 3 weeks, and you could find no chlorine in the swimming pool at all. Now then, what I would say is, and we that's as far basically as we got on our study there. Now you may have some anaerobic bacteria or something that you'll need to deal with. We don't know. We didn't keep going to find out if it was going to go ahead and stay good and clean and pure and whatnot. We didn't get that far, but it will definitely clean it up.
Back to the tilapia. I know when they raise these tilapia, they are raising them in such a crowded condition. There's a lot of fecal matter in the water.
Yes, sir.
What does that oxygen do? Does it break it down faster, quicker, or what?
It will attack the pathogens in there, and what we want to do is we want to get the feed water at a high level, and once you get the feed water that's coming into those tanks at a very high level, well, then your fish are going to be much healthier through and through, every cell of their body. Also, but excuse me. But what happens? In my way of thinking, and we'll prove this as we go along, but it will neutralize the waste product in that tank, and it will settle out just like dirt on the bottom of your farm pond would. And I believe that's where we're headed on in this thing, but we'll know a little bit more about that as time goes along.
Yeah, because those ponds they have those tilapias in. They are just crowded with fish, overcrowded, really.
Now, somebody called me today too, and if you don't mind me sharing this, Tommy, I haven't shared this before.
Go ahead.
But occasionally people will ask me about can I put this water into a glass container or something and get it out of the plastic bottle, because some people don't like plastic water in plastic bottles, and you know, even though our source says that our plastic doesn't leach, well, everybody's got their own idea about that. So I tell them certainly you can put it into a glass container if you have one or something like that. It's not going to hurt the water, but I had somebody come back to me today and said, well, I poured the water out into two containers. I had a glass container, and then I had a polycarbonate container, which is a form of plastic, Lexan plastic, and said, I noticed that there are things floating in the water. Said, that water is contaminated or something. I said, well, what happened is that it's going to attack anything that's in that jar, whether it's detergent residue that you can't even see or what. If there's anything in there, it's going to attack it. And I had a real good, and this lady, I think she questioned my thinking on that, but I had I said, well, there's nothing wrong with your water, and if you want that stuff out of there, then you can always just filter it through some sort of a cloth filter or whatever filter that you might have, just to take those particles out if you want to, but they'll go ahead and settle out. But when early on, whenever I changed my house over to the purple entirely, I opened the faucet, and my wife was visiting down here in Texas at the time, and I called her. I said, I think we're going to have to drill another deep well up here. I think we've gone into somebody's septic system or something. And and I still have some of that. You can't believe the stuff that come off of those pipes and everything. And I took them to a friend of mine who's a dentist has worked in water for years and years and years, and he looked it over and he said, all you're doing is just cleaning the pipes of your house out, and you just happen to be there to catch them at the right time. Well, it's like I told this lady, I said, they also clean the plumbing of your body out, and will dispose of that kind of stuff. And that's we see that because if you got high blood pressure, oftentimes that's caused, in my understanding, by build-up inside the vessels. And anytime you get a build-up inside the vessels, it's just like a pipe. You get a build-up inside the pipe, you shrink the diameter, and you're trying to push the same amount of water through there, then you're going to have a higher pressure in order to do that. And the two closely parallel. So that's why I told the lady, I said, this is why we're having the successes that we are with this water, because it'll go ahead and clean up that piping, and it's not and you see it just by pouring it out of the bottle into your containers. And she was just sure that those things were clean as a whistle. Well, I am too, to the naked eye. But that water is going to, if there's any pathogen or anything, it's going to attack that. That oxygen is going to attack those pathogens as soon as you put it in there.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, because I remember when I used to have clustered water, and I used to put 1 ounce of clustered water in a gallon of distilled water, And I don't care how clean the container is, when I put that clustered water in there and I start pouring out, I saw there was definitely a difference. There was a perfect line straight across all the way down where that it had cleaned the off into the pits, off into the, I guess, into the glass.
Yeah.
And I thought I had cleaned it out, but evidently I hadn't. And the rest of the top part looked dull.
Well, you looked at it, and to your own satisfaction, it was clean. I'm sure this lady, if I had seen it before she'd done that, I'd say that those containers were probably clean as whistles also. But just like I said, you're dealing with an extremely tough hombre in this water, because it is designed to attack stuff like that, and it does it with a vengeance. And that's what we're looking for. That's what we're trying to accomplish. You don't want that stuff in your body. You don't want it in your animals' bodies. You don't want it anywhere that it's going to be detrimental. And goodness, like I've said all along, if somebody's going to represent me in a fight or something, I want somebody representing me that's got scars all over them. I want to know that they've been there, done that, type thing.
Yeah. So it cleaned out your pipes in your house?
Yes, sir.
You had the water, did you put the purple water bottles in your well?
No, what I had a, excuse me, I had a situation where I come out of my well through a filter that would filter the larger residue in case you had a little cave in or something in your well, and you stirred up some trash in it. Well, then that would catch the very first of it.
Right.
From there, then it would go through my big charcoal filter and the other things that I had, then into the holding tank. And so in my particular case, it was easy enough to, whenever this preliminary filter had a cartridge in it, and I would change that out about every 3 weeks, because there would be that much silt and all that it would catch. And whenever I would clean it out and put a new cartridge in there, then I would just dump a bottle of my purple water in there, and it then would go ahead and go into the storage tank, which was your pressurizing tank, and had a residence time in there, because we weren't using the water steady. Well, it was able to get into it long enough that it then, as it went out of the pressure tank through the house, throughout the house and the faucets and everything, well, then I could check it on the furthest outlet from my pump and tell when my oxygen level was where it was supposed to be.
Well, have your pipes been cleaned out? It sounds like you OxyClean your pipes with that purple water.
Oh, yeah, you can. You really can, and I did, and it scared me to death.
Kind of reminded me of a lady that was using the Miracle 2 soap. She was bathing with it, and she had a jacuzzi. Well, she'd been bathing with it for about 3 or 4 months, and one day she called me. She said, "Tommy," she said, I was taking a bath in my jacuzzi, and I woke up and all this black stuff was all over me. And she said, "What did the soap do?" I told her, I said, "Guess it cleaned out the lines in your jacuzzi."
Right.
I said, "How long have you had it?" She said, "About 7 or 8 years." I said, "Well, sound like it cleaned them out." She said, "And the motor runs quieter now."
That's right. That's right. We got a very interesting product, folks. So don't sell it short. It's designed to work, and it does work.
Fred.
Yes, sir.
How about, I'm sure you have some testimonies, or maybe not, but on a house aquarium, how much water in a small container could you put in there I presume that it will help anything that needs water to be oxygenated in that sense. So I'm sure that one could use it in a house type of an aquarium.
Very, very definitely. Early on, this has been over 2 years ago, I guess now. somebody got my water up in up north, and they said, we got an aquarium. Is it safe to put this water in an aquarium? I said, well, it sure is. And they did, and it just worked out real good. But they came back with the question, well, what about my aerator? I said, well, go ahead and keep the aerator going if you want to, because that's just for your benefit anyway. That's just something for you to look at while it's pumping those bubbles through there. But I said, believe me, the oxygen is throughout the tank already. And but yeah, you can do that, and it depends on the size tank. You can use the same ratio, a tablespoon per gallon of the red green if you like, and it'll work beautifully for you. And if you've got any reservations about it, you can always get you a gallon glass jar or something, and get some of the water out of it, and put one of your fish in there. And test it in that gallon and see how he really likes it before you expose the full aquarium to the same thing. But I know where you're headed with it. You're going to put it in that aquarium and enjoy every bit of it, and then your fish will too. But you may want to err on the side of caution since it's the first time doing something like this.
But you just mentioned something, is that you just mentioned about mixing it the same way that I mix my drinking water. I was thinking more along the lines of capturing the water in about a 4 or 5 ounce little bottle, and then just keeping it in the aquarium.
Well, you just hang the bottle in there, you mean?
Exactly.
Well, you can do that, yes. Just your choice. It'll go ahead and energize that entire aquarium. If you go the mixture that I'm talking about, a tablespoon per gallon, well, we already know that will energize a gallon of water. And so if you got a 20-gallon aquarium, well, then use 20 tablespoons full if you like, and that's a known quantity. But yeah, you can do it that other way too. Hang that bottle over in the corner of the aquarium, or just let it float like a cork. Doesn't matter.
Any other questions? I know we're getting pretty close to an hour. I know Fred's got to go to another call. Any other questions?
No, that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Fred, I know you have to go to another call, but if anyone has any other questions, feel free to go ahead and ask him a question.
Yeah, I'll hang on here for a moment if anybody's got anything else. I hope I haven't muddied anybody's water here tonight by...
No, you didn't clean my pipes.
Well, it's real, and that's a topic that we haven't really discussed a lot about, but we're talking about it in the house plumbing, and we're talking about it in other areas like we've talked here tonight. But realize your body is a house too, and it's got its own plumbing, and it's got fluid in there, and it's called blood running through those vessels, but you can measure the oxygen content of it and stuff like this. So it's a real nice parallel. So just know that you live in a house there for sure. But
what about using this kind of water? And I know you talked about. Had you thought about using the purple water to see if it would give you better gas mileage, putting it close to your gas tank or up there on your motor or something like that?
Yeah, we've just recently done some experimentation in that area, and just by putting a treated pad, if you will, a gel substance that wouldn't freeze, just put that pad over the fuel tank and hold it on with some tie wraps or whatnot just to keep it from dropping off. It just increased the mileage 15%, best I recall. went from zero load to this we done on a truck, a zero load to 18,000 pound load, and after it was loaded up was when applied the pad on there that energized the fuel tank itself, of all things, and increased the mileage 15%.
Pulling 8,000 pounds.
With 18,000 pounds.
18? Oh, my God.
Yeah.
So, do you have something that you could share with us in writing about how to do this? You talk about a gel. I assume it's a gel that will absorb water, and then you would put this purple or red green in that gel to sit on top of the tank.
Well, we've got one of our guys down in the San Antonio area that's going to be introducing that product, and they're doing their testing and all on it there now. So it's just a matter of time till it's going to be available. But we're doing some additional testing other than that. That's just one of them that we ran, and that sure did look promising to us. So that's going to be available to you. You know, just hang loose. I don't want to give away too much here yet, you know.
Okay. Any testimony? We got anybody got any testimonies? Fred, I mean, got any more testimonies of people using it for pain?
Yeah, we get pain testimonies almost on a daily basis, and this is another thing that the doctors that's doing our testing, they don't understand how, without opening that bottle, you can hold it next to a pain and it goes away, but they know that it does. It is kind of hard to explain, and it's another one of those God phenomenons is all I can tell you. But you just we're dealing with energy levels, and that bottle is an energy generator, and you can put it next to that pain, and it is the strong man of the house, and it will overcome that pain. I'll tell you, we just see that time and time again, and I guess we had let's see, one guy that had a cough, a chronic cough for I want to say 16 years. But anyway, he got on the water. Plus, he started sleeping with that and putting it next to his throat and all. And I think within a day or two, then that cough was totally gone. My gal at the bank, I saw her just recently, and she said that everything is holding. What the deal on her was, she had a pain in her foot area, down around the ankle, some way to where she could hardly stand to put weight on it. She said whenever she was at home, sometimes she just had to crawl on her all fours to get from one spot in the house to another because she just couldn't stand it. She said I let her have some of my water, and she said, you told me that if I held that near the pain area that it'd probably go away, and said I just sat down and just put my foot on that bottle, and said in 5 minutes that pain went away. Now that was on Monday, and I saw her the following Friday, and she says that pain hadn't come back, and I saw her again this week, and this pain still hadn't come back. So, but you've got people that have called me and said I had a way of checking the energy level that that bottle is putting out, and said they could detect the energy up to 100 feet away, and I thought that was kind of phenomenal. I didn't do that myself. That's what somebody was telling me. So
wow, that's a long way.
It is a long ways. It influences things around it. I mean, it'll change the complexion of things.
They might need that water over there in Egypt.
You're right. We need to pour some in the Nile over there.
Float some bottles down it.
You better know it. I've been on the Nile in the boats and in Cairo before, but I don't want to be over there now. Let's see. I'm looking at one here. My husband and I began nebulizing our Royal Manna several days ago. The idea occurred after we both experienced increased lung capacity from drinking and bathing in it. When I drew the very first bath in our home, I was standing over the tub inhaling the steam, and I was prepared for it. I realized that I was breathing even more easily. Out came the nebulizer. We're prescribed when we simultaneously had H1N1 pneumonia, or H1N1/pneumonia last year. Now it's really worth something and no longer collecting dust in the closet. That come from Arizona.
So if you got a nebulizer, you can use it in your nebulizer too, huh?
Yes, sir.
What ratio? Would you run it straight or just?
Well, I just mix it like you would your drinking water. I mean, you go charge it up there, and you might as well, use a little of it. A little of that goes a long ways, Tommy.
Yeah, a little dab will do you.
Little dab will do you.
Yeah. Well, virus, bacteria, and cancer can't live in oxygenated bodies, so it's amazing this water. You get it in that body, yet something has to leave.
Something has got to go. I'm telling you, kids, this is it.
I think I like your terminology of the strong man of the house.
Well, I do too, Tommy. I can relate to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Any more questions, Tommy? It's about time to close out and let Fred go his next date he got.
Well, if anyone don't have any questions, Fred, we do appreciate you for coming on. We learn something every time.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'm glad I was able to get on here. There's been quite a demand on my time, and I can't always do it, but I thank you for letting me show up here today. And folks, for joining us, I thank you for being a part of this, and we wish you all well, and stay healthy. And thanks again, and good night, all of you.
Okay, take care.
Okay.
All right, Fred. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Uh-huh. And if you have any questions or if you want the conference call, you can go ahead and play it back. It's 712-432-1085. The PIN number is 818-447#. I'll go ahead and turn it off. That way